long as we have faith in our cause
I'm Mike.
and unconquerable willpower,
I'm Dave.
salvation will not be denied us.
And this is Between the Lines.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
And we're back.
We're back.
We are here.
We weren't here last week.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have David Beckham on the program with us.
Yes. I like soccer. I like turtles.
Dave has been participating in some soccer. So
Yeah.
he's
You never know how out of shape you are until you try to do something that you haven't done since like grade school.
Oh, I remember, not to digress too much, but I remember in high school we used to go out to the basketball courts after school and we would play horse, or we would play
Yeah.
1-on-1 or 3-on-3 or something
Yeah.
like that. And the other day, I picked up a basketball and my kid was trying to shoot hoops. I'm like, oh, let me show you a thing or two. I try to do one crossover and I about blow out my knee, and it was horrible. It is like,
Well, basketball is one thing. Basketball is a lot of arms.
yeah,
If you think about it. I mean, there's running and stuff, but it's more arms than anything.
100% understand.
Soccer
what
is
you're
all
saying.
legs. Legs
Yep.
you just stand on most of the time, or you sit on them. You don't like expect them to do the kicking, the running, the walking, the jumping, the blocking.
Yeah, there's a lot. I'm not a fan of soccer. Not that I don't.
In fact, you
like
can't
the
even
sport,
use your
but-
arms in soccer. You're not allowed to use your arms in soccer. You have to like. I'm such an arm person because of growing up in Philly. If you grew up in Philly, you talk with your hands.
Oh yeah.
You do a lot of the gesturing and all that stuff. So, but even in basketball, it's all hands. That's what I was used to. I was good at basketball. Soccer, I was not good at. So I'm like, my brain keeps firing off. You got to move the arm. You got to move the arm. It's like, but this is soccer. You can't
You're
move the
not
arm.
supposed to move your arm.
So, but anyways, it's been fun.
But that's what Dave's been doing.
Yeah.
He's been doing the soccer. I am not a fan of soccer. Not that I don't like the sport. I don't enjoy it. But I have a heck of a lot of respect for the people that
It's
play
a workout.
because it's
u-
intense.
It's usually
It's
a
intense.
low-scoring sport. Now, however, if you're talking about indoor soccer, it's a whole different
Yeah.
ball game. I went to John Bon Jovi actually bought the Philadelphia Kicks,
Oh,
which
okay.
was an indoor soccer team. And let me tell you, if I've never seen a more horrible display of what was considered professional sports. I mean, there's people kicking goals from the other side of the goal. They should have just called it goalie soccer because it was like the goalie, versus each other. I think the score, the one game I ever went to, because it's like I'm never coming back to this. I think it was like 20-something to 2.
Oh wow.
It was like,
that's
when do you
definitely,
ever see more than
Yeah.
like 3 or 4 goals in any
that's-
actual soccer game?
That's pretty intense. Like every once in a while, a hockey game
Yeah,
will go out of control and you'll get like a 10 or 15 point game. But even hockey,
that's very, very, very rare.
yeah, it doesn't happen very often. So as Dave mentioned, it's been a little while since we've been here. We've had just some stuff come up. I had a couple of, not a couple. I had some family stuff come up that I had to deal with, so we weren't here for that. So just go back and check out some of our old episodes. We've got a couple of reaction videos out there. We've got some stuff on the First, Second, Third, and Fourth Amendment. I actually went back and looked, and we actually never did the Fifth Amendment yet, so we're still going to do that at some point, but there's so much that's been going on.
This is going to be like a 4-year-long
Oh, I know.
endeavor.
I think we're only going to do 10. Like the first 10, I think that like the Bill of Rights, I think is important. And
We're
then-
doing the 51st Amendment, which talks about how to categorize
Yeah.
documents in your filing cabinet.
By the time we get to the last amendment, they'll actually probably have another amendment to add to the list. So go back and check out some of our older stuff. You can find us on Twitter at the BTL Podcast. You can find us on Facebook at PA Between the Lines. We're on Reddit. We're on Spotify. We're on Google Podcast, Apple, iTunes.
OnlyFans.
Anywhere. You keep plugging that. We're actually not on OnlyFans. We keep plugging the OnlyFans. We don't have an OnlyFans, but Dave likes to joke. Jokey joke maker.
You can see me at 9 to 10.
So go back and check some of those old episodes out. I guess we can start off with, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that it was 9/11.
Yes.
I believe, 2022? So that would make it the 21st anniversary
21 years.
of 9/11. So 9/11 can drink
Yes.
legally now. It's crazy. It's actually insane because I have I'll bring them in sometimes so you can see them or maybe take pictures of them. But I have some 9/11 memorial items.
Oh, cool.
That my mom bought right after 9/11. New York was trying to raise money because they were broke.
Yeah.
Because of what happened. So I have a memorabilia of the Twin Towers.
Okay.
It's like a little statue of the Twin Towers, and it's got the little globe, and I have the Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, but they were all memorabilia anyway. And I saw a book the other day that my kid, I think he checked it out of the library when he was in elementary school.
And you still have it.
Yeah, because he never returned it. We paid for it. I'm keeping it. We paid for it. I'm keeping it. At any rate, the name of the book is What Were the Twin Towers?
Oh, okay.
Isn't that insane
Yeah.
that we have to have a book now?
Yeah.
What were the Twin Towers? Because,
Yeah, I mean, it's not what are they?
yeah, what were they?
Yeah.
A lot of kids today weren't alive. And it was, I remember exactly where I was sitting. I was a senior in high school. We had just started school. We'd only been in school for about a month, and I was doing a consortium program. A bunch of the schools in Lycoming County participated in what was called the Lycoming County Career Consortium. And like you could go to a different school, like South Williamsport had a computer program, and Loyalsock had digital imaging and stuff like that. So I was sitting there editing videos, much like what I'm doing right now. And the principal of Loyalsock High School came on and said that a plane had flown into the first tower and that they weren't sure what was going on. And then on the bus ride back to the school, the second plane hit, and then we sat in the classrooms and pretty much watched the news footage as it happened. But I'll never, sounds like a cliche now because we've been saying it for 20 years, but I'll never forget. I'll never forget where I was. And then anecdotal story about 9/11. We went to New York City in October of 2001. So it had only been a month since the towers went down, and we took the Staten Island ferry around Staten Island where the Statue of Liberty is. And across from the Statue of Liberty is where the Twin Towers were. So as part of the tour, you could see Ground Zero.
Yeah.
And all I remember is the smell. It was the most disgusting, worst. It was like, have you ever been around somebody that's welding, and you get like that sulfuric, like burning metal smell? That, and you could smell like the bodies. It was gross. It was the worst smell I'll never forget it. And a friend of mine who was in the military, who had been in war zones and things like that, said that that's the smell of war. He says that's what you smell when you're overseas or something like that, and in an area where a bomb's been dropped or something like that. That's the smell that you smell. So, anecdotally, I remember where I was on that day, and I don't think I ever will forget something like that. Kind of.
Was that the year after it happened, or
no? That was a month after it happened.
Oh, really?
It was October of 2001.
Okay.
So it would have been less than a month after the towers were brought down.
I didn't go to see Ground Zero until I want to say it was like 2 or 3, maybe 4 years after it happened.
Yeah.
So by then it was all kind
pretty
of
much
cordoned off and
Yeah.
cleaned up and whatnot.
What was strange is I was somebody that frequented New York a lot. We would go probably twice a summer. because we had family in New York, and my mom loved the city, so we went to New York a lot. Went for school trips to New York. Anyway, long story short, in October of 2001, it was weird. It was like you were in Belarus or something.
Yeah.
Like they had barbed wire around the subway entrances, and they had Humvees and tanks in Manhattan, and military personnel were guarding the subway stations because they didn't know. They didn't know if this was it, if there was something else coming.
Yeah.
Martial law, I think, was still in effect in New York City, so it was pretty dystopian. It was like being in another country. It was crazy, but I'm glad I went because it was an experience.
I'm surprised they were even letting people do tours.
Well, they were actually begging people not to cancel their plans because they needed the revenue.
Gotcha.
So they were begging people to come to New York. They weren't doing tours, and you could only, I can't remember what street was, but they had Manhattan cordoned off, so where you couldn't go too close to Ground Zero. The closest you could get was, like I said, if you took the Staten Island ferry, you were probably about a half a mile away,
Gotcha.
which was pretty close. I got some pictures of it. Not that it's something that you want to celebrate but you do want to remember it because it was a day.
Yeah.
It was certainly a day. And one thing that I'll remember before we move on, unless you have something to add, but one thing I remember is the skies being completely clear. No planes. Like the 3 days after 9/11, like they grounded all flights and everything like that. So like you would walk outside. Normally you would see a plane streaking across the sky, or you would hear 747 or whatever going through, and it was just silence. There was nothing. It was nothing. But
that was I think it was my first year of college when it happened. So
it was insane.
It was in the middle of classes when they came.
It was insane.
But I remember there was at least one or two people who had parents that worked there, but I don't remember all the details because it's been a while, but I remember something to the effect that they called out sick that day.
Yeah.
One of those deals. So,
Sure.
So they missed what happened, but otherwise they would have been there.
Talk about winning the lottery.
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously.
You catch a cold or something, and you can't make it into work that day, and then all of a sudden you look on.
Yeah.
I told my son when I was talking to him the other day, because he's 12, so he wasn't alive. And I was telling him, like, there were quite a few people that made it out. Like a lot of people made it out.
Yeah. On the lower floors.
On the lower floors, it was the people that were above the wreckage that I feel the worst for. And there was a documentary that came out shortly after 9/11 happened. There were two brothers that were doing a documentary about the NYPD.
Yeah, I remember watching that. It was
and
good.
They just happened to be live when it happened. They were in the buildings. They were there when the towers fell, and it's very gripping because it's raw and it's real. It wasn't planned. It wasn't like they have that Nicolas Cage movie.
Yeah, I was just gonna say one of the half decent movies that Nicolas Cage has done.
And it wasn't bad, and
No.
it was very factually accurate. But you can tell that there's things in there that were added for artistic license and stuff like that. Whereas the documentary was just raw. It was insane. But anyway, I digress on that. Thoughts go out to any of the victims and the victims' families of 9/11 because we're still recovering. We still have, as a country, we really still haven't recovered fully from 9/11. And honestly, I don't think as a country we'll ever go back to the way it was. One, because of the Patriot Act for sure, but I don't think we'll ever go back to the way it was before 9/11.
I mean, it's 20 years, but you got to figure it's 20 years that people. 20 years really hasn't been that long of a time in the grand scheme of things.
No, it's a blip.
And for people that have lost family during that whole event, know.
Yep.
So
it's like Pearl Harbor. I think obviously it's worse than Pearl Harbor because Pearl Harbor was military on military.
Yeah.
And this was an attack directly on civilians.
Yeah.
And
which was different.
Yeah, that's completely different. But at any rate,
Yeah.
um,
So our thoughts go
Yeah,
out to all those.
yeah. Yay, America.
So
Yay, America. And on another note,
another big loss.
Yeah, another big loss. Huge deal. Queen Elizabeth II passed away. What was it, Tuesday of this week?
Yeah.
I think it was.
Longest running.
Yeah.
Longest sitting monarch in the history of.
I think really I think it was any monarch of any monarchy. I think she was the longest sitting ever of any person to ever hold a throne.
Yeah. Well,
which is insane.
It's World War II that catapulted her.
Yeah, she ascended at 25.
Yeah.
So she was 96. That's 71 years. It's
crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I don't think that'll ever happen again.
No.
Because like Charles,
he's already 73.
Yeah, he's already 73. Charles III, he's already 73. So no offense to Charles, but maybe 20 years.
Yeah.
If he's lucky, 20.
Yeah.
You know.
And then
William, he's already 40.
Yeah.
So the only way that it'll ever happen again is if George, William's first son, if George ascends to the throne before he's 25.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it could happen, but I don't see it happening. 25 is young for a monarch.
Yeah.
I mean, generally it doesn't happen. I mean, we've had, obviously, in the history of humans, we've had some teenage kids kings and emperors that are like 8-9 years old.
But they still died early.
Yeah. Like,
because the life expectancy was different. Plus, they're always constantly like getting STDs and
fighting off assassinations and
off wars and trying to conquer half the world.
However you say it, I can never say his name right. Tutankhamun.
Yeah.
He was what, 10?
Yeah,
10?
something like that.
Died at 13. I don't remember the ages, but he was very young. Very
Tutankhamun.
Tutankhamun. Yeah, I don't know how the hell.
Tootin' lots of
Tut.
Does
King Tut.
Lots of tootin'.
Lots of tootin'.
That's his name.
So, you know, I would say our condolences, but damn, she was 96.
Yeah.
You know, what are you gonna say? She flipped her bike
Yeah.
Flipped her motorcycle.
Well, her mom. How old was her mom when she passed away?
Oh, I don't remember, but she was old.
She was up there too. I mean, they just
good genes from all that.
Seriously,
all that royal inbreeding.
Yeah. Oh, tip cheerio.
In all seriousness,
yeah.
no. You know, thoughts and prayers to the Queen and her family. God save the UK, because Charles is a fucking idiot.
Yeah. Well, he did get a little bit of a clapter for his speech the other day. He seemed to. I
don't think he'll be a bad king. He's just a doofus.
The thing of it is that we put a lot of stock on these switches, but in the grand scheme of things, they don't do a whole lot.
No, they're a figurehead.
Yeah,
they really don't.
They have been a figurehead since Elizabeth.
I really don't even understand. I don't understand why they still do it. Why are they still going through the motions? You know what I mean? You got this royal family that your country is paying probably billions of dollars, if we're being honest, to house, feed, and protect. And what do they do?
Yeah.
In all honesty, what do they do? Other than tradition, which I'm just a dumb American. I don't understand. We left you guys a long time ago. I don't have a dog in the race. You know what I mean? So I don't understand it. So in the comments below, if somebody from the UK or Scotland or Ireland or Britain, any of those areas, or even any of the colonies, if you wanted to kind of comment down below how important the monarchy is to your everyday life as a Brit or as a Scot or somebody from Ireland, comment down below, because I don't get it. I don't understand how the royal family affects you.
I think if anything, I mean, it's more
because they're a constitutional monarchy,
Yeah.
And in the Constitution, it says that the monarchs, whoever it may be, is supposed to stay apolitical. They're not supposed to get involved in politics.
And I think that's what kind of engenders people to them, in all honesty, their apoliticalness. I mean, it's not that they don't say things, but they've always been so proper, especially Elizabeth. She's been so proper in her approach to things that it's...
She was a rock.
Yeah. And I think that's it's more like if the bald eagle was a person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like a symbol.
Uncle Sam. Let's say Uncle Sam, for instance.
Sure.
You know, he was a real person that was just always held his title, never lost his. It was never Uncle Tom or Uncle John or Uncle Dan. It's always Uncle Sam.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
No, I get what you're
he's,
saying.
He's a guy that holds his title. He shows up at every political event, but he has no ties to one or the other. And he embodies like the core elements of what people appreciate about the country that they live in.
So they're a mascot.
Yeah. In essence, but this one's a living, breathing one.
Yeah, the British mascot. They're changing all the money.
Yeah. Oh, are they?
Yeah, they're changing all the money, which is weird. You would think. I mean, they're getting to it quick too. I think they're putting Charles on all the money now.
Well, I read something about how people are clamoring for Queen Elizabeth II memorabilia.
Yeah.
Because it's being discontinued like right away.
Yep.
Like they don't waste any time with
moving on.
No.
And I guess part of that's probably tradition as well.
Yeah.
They're probably, you don't want to. When you're talking about a monarch, it's different than a president or something like that.
It's interesting because, as little as the monarch actually has to do with the actual political movements of a country, they still remain at the core of everything that happens in their country.
Yep.
So it's like, despite how tumultuous things become, like think of Brexit recently.
Yeah.
Brexit was one of the biggest things that happened in their history that basically pulled them out of the European Union, which they had been a part of since when?
Oh, Lord.
It's been,
96, I think,
founding
wasn't it?
member. So most people were born understanding that they were part of the European Union, and all of a sudden they're not a part of the European Union anymore. It's like Pennsylvania suddenly becoming not part of, disincorporating.
Texas finally getting their wish.
Yeah, exactly. Their wish after 300 years.
Yeah, finally.
Finally.
Texas is free.
But at the core of it, despite all that's swirling around, it's like the eye of the hurricane. It's very still. It's very calm. It's something that people can retreat to, I think. And I think that
that you make a good point. It's nice, especially in a world where things change so often and so
it's
swiftly.
It's nice to have tradition.
It would be nice to have something that you can look at and say, well, things have changed, but the Queen's still there. Like, it's going to be weird because when I think of Britain, I think of Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Like, she is synonymous with the UK. And it's going to be weird not having her at the helm anymore because it's just going to be strange.
I think of we've tried to get into buying foods that we don't commonly buy. So we discovered there's an international market in this in the town.
We have culture.
We do, believe it or not. But my wife was down there picking up some stuff and just talking to the lady that runs the place, and she was talking about how her daughter never wanted to eat anything that they ate. Basically,
oh, sure.
She didn't want anything to do with traditional food, whatever. I don't know what her background is, so I can't say for sure what that is, but at the same time, it was funny that the lady mentioned that her daughter suddenly started to develop an interest or taste for those foods again after she started hanging out with friends at college that had an interest in that food.
Funny.
It's funny how it leads back, and suddenly she can't get enough of it, and it's all she eats and everything. And I just say that sometimes we like to back away from tradition for a while, but as you get older, you start to realize that you appreciate it even though you hated it growing up with it.
Funny story. Not for nothing. My grandfather was in the Air Force, and he was stationed over in Germany during the Korean War, and he was a cook.
Okay.
in the Air Force. And one of the things that they had all the time was SOL.
Yeah, shit on shingles.
Yeah, SOS. That's what it was. Yeah,
SOS.
SOS. That's what it was. SOS. Shit on a shingle. And they hated it
Yeah.
during the war because it was bland and whatever, and they
It was cheap to
hated
make.
It was cheap to make. You can make a ton of it.
Yeah.
It was cheap to make. Long story short, getting to the point, when they would do their reunions, all of the guys would want my pap to make shit on a shingle for the reunions because they missed it.
Yeah.
That was a memory for them of their time in the war. So they grew fond to it, even though they hated it while they were there. It's like the best cooking you ever have is always going to be your mom's.
Yeah.
Even if your mom's a horrible cook, you're going to always want to go back and have.
Because your palate develops based off of that. Yeah.
And it becomes nostalgic, and you have an affinity for that.
Well,
food,
look at it now,
even
like
if you hated it.
Cream chipped on beef, which is what it is.
Yep.
Or cream chipped beef on toast.
On toast, yeah.
Shit on shingles, but it now it's served at like any of your breakfast places.
Every single one of them.
Yeah,
yeah.
you go
And
in.
it's actually the chipped beef has gotten really expensive.
Yeah.
Like it's actually a higher end dish now.
Well, it's like, what was the thing back in the prisons of the 1800s? They used to serve them lobster because they were considered the roaches of the sea. So
Things change.
beef Wellington and the beef dishes, they were the expensive thing. Lobsters were like in abundance.
Yeah.
So they served them the freaking prisoners.
Yep.
And now it's like a delicacy,
That's
in
crazy.
a manner of speaking, but you know.
No, that's crazy. And I think like clams and oysters used to be the
Yeah.
same way too. Like
Yep.
the poor people would eat oysters, tons and tons of oysters, and now oysters are a delicacy and they're expensive now.
Well, now we live in a day and age where anything can become a delicacy if
Yeah.
you have a gastropub that came up with an idea.
Yeah. Well, I think that's also part of it because back in the day, which was a Wednesday, by the way.
Yeah.
That's an old Dane Cook joke I always liked.
Wednesday.
That was the one joke that he told that was funny. But back in the day, because they didn't have the distribution that they have nowadays, things were in abundance because that's where you lived. So I imagine like prisons in New England
Yeah.
and places like that
Yeah.
would serve lobster and stuff because it's in abundance. Whereas if you were in Texas,
Yeah.
probably a lot more beef and
Yeah.
and stuff because that's what you had readily available.
Or slop.
Nowadays, that's why I think seafood is so expensive, is because one, it's in high demand, people love it, and the distribution chain from getting it from Cape Cod to Oklahoma, it's not an easy task. So that's why it's
I was actually
delicacy.
looking at, there was an article that somebody posted about the way that food is served to prisoners in different countries, and they compared like a couple of major ones. And I think it was it Switzerland or Sweden, one of the two, where their policy is that they believe that serving them nutritious, holistic foods are the best way to go. Which I don't
disagree.
I don't have a problem with, prisoners that are in there for things that they're going to get out eventually because of good behavior and actual rehab. I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. The guy who just went out and slaughtered 15, 20, I could give a rat's ass what they feed him. They can feed him dog shit for all I care. So
give him toast and water for the rest of his life. Never a salt shaker shall he ever see again.
Yeah, exactly.
No spices, no pepper.
Yeah.
Everything you get is just boiled potatoes and toast.
Yeah.
That's all you get.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I can agree with that. I mean, on the other side of the coin, would that be considered cruel and unusual?
Yeah. Maybe we're allowed to be a little bit cruel and unusual when it comes to people that were cruel and unusual. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyways,
I digress. So just to end the whole discussion, God save the king.
Prince Charles.
It is pretty cool seeing a king, the King of England. I've never seen that in my lifetime. My dad's never seen that in his lifetime. No. And my grandfather has barely seen that. Well, he's dead now. But he saw a king, I think, because before Queen Elizabeth, it was her dad. Her dad was king before. So
If you want to
This
see,
is generational.
if you want to see a good movie, King's Speech.
Oh, the King's Speech. That's right. That was her dad.
Yeah.
That was her dad.
It highlights around the most popular speech that was ever given during wartime, because the story goes is that the king was a stutterer, and he had a really bad time with public speaking. You know, here he is, the king, and he can't speak.
Yeah.
So but it's a phenomenal movie because it talks about the relationship between he and his speech therapist that really. It's funny because if not to give away the story, but he kind of gives the thing that he centers on is being able to say curse words, because he's very eloquent when he fires off F-bombs and when he fires off all different types, shit, bugger, fucking. and so what's funny is that in the movie you see these points where a lot of times he's in a closed room doing, closed room, red light with the microphone giving his speech because he needed to be out of sight of people when giving speeches like that. But the only person that was ever allowed in the room with him was a speech therapist, and it was choreographed.
Oh, wow.
It was like musical. He was directing, his ups, his downs, his inflections when he would hit certain notes. And it was funny because in between the pauses, the quiet points between when he would stop and speak, he would tell him, you could see him going. So he would be like dropping F-bombs in his mind because that was the way to keep himself focused on what he was saying.
Wow.
It's an interesting story.
No, that's pretty cool.
So, but anyways,
cool.
But yeah, he would have been the most recent king. That would be Queen Elizabeth's dad.
Elizabeth's dad.
So,
yeah, I delved into the line of succession for the royal family, and boy, does it get complicated.
oh yeah, holy cow, yeah.
Yeah, so just real quick, it goes from Charles to William to William's kids, both his sons, and then if both his sons can't do it, then it goes to Harry. It's Prince Harry, right? Yeah, Harry.
But they've been disbanded, haven't they? Weren't they?
They didn't give up their.
They didn't.
They didn't give up their titles and whatnot. So then it goes to Harry, and then Harry's kids, and then if Harry's kids or whatever can't do it, then it actually goes to Queen Elizabeth's brother. No. Charles's brother, Andrew.
Okay, gotcha.
And then if he can't do it, it goes to Charles's sister. And if she can't do it, then it goes to it goes to some duke.
It reminds me of that show called The Last Survivor, or with Kiefer Sutherland. Designated Survivor.
That's a good That's a good
where
show.
he's like the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to like ascension.
Everybody gets wiped out.
And he's the last guy standing.
So again, to our friends in the UK, our condolences to the Queen. And congratulations to Charles on his ascension. May he stay safe and well and all that. I still think he's an ass, but that's just my opinion. So anyway, back across the pond to the United States. Now for something completely different.
Yes. Brought to you by your sponsors.
Brought to you by your sponsors.
Brought to you by Pfizer.
Yeah. Brought to you in part by... Anyway, so one thing that we wanted to do here, we had talked about it, and we're going to start featuring something every week, as much as we can, of a good guy with a gun defending himself against a bad guy. Either armed or otherwise.
Yeah.
And the ramifications of said thing and our opinions, and not that they matter, but that's what we want to do. So this week, what we have is there was a gentleman in Ohio that defended his home against a crazy ex-boyfriend.
And this was just a few weeks ago.
This
29th.
This was recently. The story's from August 29th, 2022, so this is relatively recent. A little bit of a backstory. Daughter was dating a boy in high school or whatever. They broke up. He was upset, almost obsessed, and went over to the girlfriend's house and tried to enter unwelcomed. He was warned, and unfortunately was dispatched.
So it's a little bit more. It's pretty intense because the kid is. You can tell the kid is like out of his mind.
Yeah,
and he's
you can see
determined
it.
to get in there.
You can see it. So let's watch the news clip here from WHIO TV, which I'm assuming is Ohio, because they're in Ohio. But and
Ohio,
yeah.
Ohio, as Drew Carey would say.
That's not the James Brown I remember. I'm just throwing that out there.
He doesn't seem like he feels too good.
No. Anyway,
It's a hot tub. Hot.
County Sheriff's Office about where this case stands today and why the shooter might not face charges.
And News Center 7's Kayla McDermott spent the day in Sydney. She talked with a neighbor who saw the shooting. The doorbell
a neighbor.
camera captured this violence.
2 days ago, a shooting happened right here at this home in Shelby County, and we just received video of what happened. This doorbell video shows the moment 22-year-old James Rail walks up the steps to his ex-girlfriend's home on Cuther Road in Sydney. Seconds later, he's told to leave. You can hear the homeowners say, but Rail decides to bang on the door, trying to force his way in.
He's trying the door. Dad. No, don't answer the dad.
The Shelby County Sheriff's Office says this is the moment when Rail broke the front door and began to go inside.
And my dad shot at him.
To immediately be hit with 3 bullets. That 911 call was made by Rail's alleged ex-girlfriend who lives in the home. In that call, you can hear the fear in her voice as the operator asks her to check on Rail.
I don't want to look. Please don't make me look.
One person did look though. Next door neighbor Jeffrey Herford said he saw everything as well as Rail on the ground.
Just a shallow breathing. I was looking at the guy's hands. He didn't have any gun in his hands or anything.
Herford does not agree with the neighbors or the police report. He says from what he saw, Rail never made it inside.
I don't see that. If he entered the house, why did he shoot through the door?
But with the new stand your ground laws here in the state, Ohioans do not have to back down if they feel threatened on their own property.
Well, I think he had every right.
Which in the 911 call, you can hear the daughter agree with.
Dad, at that rate, there's nothing you could have done. You saved my life.
Now, I spoke to Sheriff James Fry here at the Shelby County Sheriff's Office. He told me that this case will go to a grand jury on Thursday, where he believes it will be tossed out thanks to the new stand your ground laws here in Ohio. In Shelby County, Kayla McDermott, News Center 7.
So that being played and whatnot, I agree somewhat with their assertion that the guy didn't have a gun and so on and so forth, but you got to look at it from the father's point of view. You've got a daughter in your home. This guy is trying to get in. You've warned him that he's not welcome, and he did break the door. So he to the neighbor's point, he didn't actually enter the home, but you don't have to. Once he breached the door, that was breaking and entering. And
does it say the door jarred?
Yep.
He was able to jar it open?
The door is eventually forced open, and 3 gunshots ring out, sending Rel fleeing.
So,
the clip shows the 22 makes its way down the porch steps a short distance before collapsing. But, boy, that's some hefty writing. Collapsing in the middle of a sun-dappled pathway. Man.
Thanks, New York Post.
Yeah, that's really eloquent for describing a shooting, like making poetry out of this stuff. Yeah, so I mean,
roses
it's
are red, violets are blue. I did shoot you, and you shot me too. Sorry, that was horrible.
I wonder if the 911 calls in here. The grand jury declined to indict. So a grand jury looked over the evidence, and to me, that's case closed. 12 people took a look at it, and
I know that this stand your ground doctrine is new, but what does it actually entail?
So I can't speak for Ohio. So anyone that lives in Ohio, do your own research. But the way that it works in Pennsylvania, and I'm sure that Ohio is the same way, is you have no duty to retreat from your own home. So essentially, the way that the law in Pennsylvania used to be is you had a duty to retreat first. So if somebody broke into your home, you would have to try to get out first. And if there's no avenue to escape the house or get away from the danger, then you have a right to defend yourself. And Pennsylvania correctly, in my opinion, changed that law to the current stand your ground laws, which says you have no duty to retreat on your own property, not even in your own home, on your own property. So even if you're outside the home and you're being threatened, you have no duty to retreat. Again, I'm not a law expert or anything like that, so don't take this as any kind of legal advice or anything along those lines. But from what I understand, as soon as that door was breached, the gun owner had every right, even though he shot through the door, which you're told you should never do, and Breonna Taylor will agree with you if she could. You don't shoot through a door to something you can't see. You don't know what's on the other side of the door. What if he had a child with him?
Exactly.
You know, as a hostage or something like that. You don't shoot at anything
you have to make
can't see.
visual confirmation of something.
If it, I can play armchair quarterback all day long and say what I would have done in that situation. In my opinion, I would have waited until he came through the threshold of the doorway before I fired. But in the heat of the moment, he's trying to protect his kids.
Well, the thing of it is too is that again he can't see anything. So there's that element of somebody saying you should have made some kind of visual. And then on the other side, you also don't know. You know, this kid was not in his mind. He was breaking into a door. It's not like somebody wasn't there.
Yeah, I want to bring this up again because what you'll notice is this video is from the New York Post. This is a different video than what we just saw. You'll notice when it plays. So here's him ringing the doorbell, trying to get in. Can't get in. It's locked. He starts banging on the door trying to get through. Now, I don't know if it'll show it. I don't know if it'll show it. I want to see if it shows the door. It does not. So let me get out of this. How do I get out of this now? And we're gonna go here. And this is the original one that we watched. I'm just gonna skip a little bit into the video because all I want to do is they showed the door right there. That's the door. Okay. So
glass window pane.
That's what I'm saying. This glass window pane right here. Stupid advertisements. That to me right there, that tells me, and you know that this is the same door because there's the sticker for the Ring doorbell that was in the video that we just showed. So that guy was forcing his way through this glass. The glass didn't break, so that tells me either A, they've already replaced the door, which that's pretty quick for a door replacement, or two, that the dad actually didn't fire through the center of the door. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because if he would have fired through let's say he did, the neighbor was correct and he didn't make it in the house. When that dad fired through the door, it would have broke the glass.
Yeah.
So the glass would have been shattered out of the door, and it's not. So that means that he would have had to have fired through a part of the side of the door.
Go back a little bit. Keep going. Does this show the... Go to the other video for a second.
Okay.
Playing private detectives here.
Yeah. A little forensic work on Between the Lines.
This is just something I saw when...
And again, this is graphic content. Viewer discretion is advised.
Just fast forward and then pause it when he first shoots. So the question is,
right there is the first shot. But it doesn't. I like. What's weird is I didn't hear, like, you would think you would hear the door cracking open. I don't understand.
I'm just. He's hitting it with his left shoulder.
Yeah.
And he's like coming in, and my thought is that he got enough in to where the first hit, the way he flinches, it almost looks like it hits him in the shoulder.
Okay.
You know, so that tells me, like you said, he wouldn't have shot through the door itself.
Yeah. It seems to me like the door, and I'm speculating, armchair quarterback here.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that what happened was he breached through the door, and when you break through a door, you're going to have, a gap in the door like this, where, it's just a little bit opened. I think that's where the homeowner was firing from a gap in the door, because again, in the video that we just showed, you don't see any bullet holes in the actual wooden frame of the door, and the glass of the actual door wasn't shattered either.
Well, if he shot that door too, that door looks pretty thick on the corners of it. So it would have probably just
splintered.
Yeah.
If anything, it would have deflected
he
the
would
bullet.
Have had to have shot
through
the glass.
He would have either had to have shot through the glass, or there would have had to have been a gap in the door.
And even if the glass is thick, it would have deflected.
It would have deflected.
I mean, you know
too.
as well as I do that 9mm bounce off of car windows
and everything else, and foreheads.
So what I'm getting at is that he would have had to have seen him.
Yeah, he would have had to have gotten the door open. Whether he now, to the neighbor's point, it doesn't matter if he actually entered the home.
No.
Once he broke the door,
yeah,
that's all it takes. Like if you're sitting in your car and somebody's trying to get in your car door, and they break the glass on your car door, they're in. You have every right to unleash hell.
So it doesn't matter what Mr. Dingleberry.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the neighbor says. And I believe the police, because one, the doorbell footage, it's amazing that we had the doorbell footage.
Yeah.
Because otherwise the family of the I don't want to say victim, the suspect.
Well, that's the other thing that crossed my mind, is that this kid was hell bent on getting in there to do something, because any of us knows what a freaking Ring doorbell is. He's on camera.
Yeah, and what was his intent? He just wanted to go in and bake them cookies. He really just wanted to make a ham sandwich.
I mean, it's sad. Don't get me wrong. It's sad. A 22-year-old kid that feels that messed up in the head.
He obviously had mental issues.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously.
I guess, was there any follow-up to, like, family being interviewed about this or anything?
The victim's family, or the suspect's family, says that it was unjustified. Yeah. Obviously, they're going to feel that way, though. But, yeah, they're saying that the dad shot through the door and that it was an unjustified killing and so on and so forth. But I maintain it sure as heck looked like he made it through the door, because you can see he's kind of, let me just put it this way, when you're trying to break into something and you're making it and you're getting stopped, and then all of a sudden he pushes through, it's like the door went open. So he's bumping up against the side and getting stopped, and then all of a sudden he goes like that, where he actually goes through the door, the threshold.
Yeah.
Once the door opens, it's fair. He's fair game.
Yeah,
he's broken in at that point.
And here's the thing: is had the dad not been there,
what was his real intent?
Yeah,
what would have happened had that guy not been there? Now, I say all the time, I never, ever, ever want to have to use my firearm in self-defense.
Yeah,
I never, ever want to, and I pray to God that I never do, so that father has to live with the fact that he did this for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And that's a weight that I can't understand. I can't understand having to have that weight on my shoulders. So I feel for him. I feel for the suspect's family because he obviously had some mental issues, and he didn't deserve what he got, but he earned it.
Well,
we'll put it that way.
I'd be interested. I don't know how much more investigation they're going to go into it, because they've already absolved.
Yeah.
The grand jury's already absolved the
Yeah,
homeowner,
and they saw the entirety of the evidence. The evidence that we haven't seen and that won't be available to the public. The only thing that I wish that the homeowner had another camera other than the Ring doorbell camera, something like actually pointing at the door. Because right now there is some speculation as to whether or not the guy made it through the door, and if we had a camera that was pointing at the door and saw him actually breach the threshold, then it would be a little bit more clear cut. But everything that I see, this was justified, and I would hope that any homeowner would do the same when protecting their family.
Did you see the story that just posted today?
No.
Texas, East Harris County, 10:40 p.m. on Friday. I'll let you bring it up here.
Yeah, what was it?
Texas, East Harris County shooting. It was Friday.
I'm looking it up.
Yeah, Harris County Sheriff.
17-year-old?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I read about this morning. 17-year-old armed with a shotgun kills 2 suspects.
There's 3 of them. 3 broke into the house. It was 2 17-year-olds and 2 17-year-olds, a 12-year-old boy, and an adult female.
Coming from click2houston.com.
Yeah, it's a
17-year-old armed with a shotgun kills 2 suspects during attempted home invasion in Eastern. From what I understand, it was him and a 12-year-old.
This says that there's 2
17-year-old boys and a 12-year-old boy were inside.
And then an adult female. So a mom or something.
Good on him. No one inside the home was injured. See? This is, hey man, grab a shotgun. Good job. Saved tax dollars and 2 criminals down. Yeah. I
2 out of 3 ain't bad. What an asshole.
I'd bet his dark-colored sedan smells a lot like the streets of San Francisco right about now. Oh, man. They're brutal online. But at any rate, so 2 armed suspects broke into a home, and 17-year-old boy grabbed a shotgun and Texased them up.
Yeah. Yeah, they
Texas.
It just goes to show that this stuff doesn't get talked about.
Which is exactly why I wanted to start doing this, because I don't think it gets brought up enough, and the mainstream media just sweeps it under the rug and pretends that it doesn't happen.
It's not. Let me put this in the grander. It's not local media's fault.
No, absolutely not.
The local newspapers, the local news stations, are as we just showed from that previous story, are covering this stuff. It's the larger media groups, the national groups.
It never gets syndication.
No,
never.
They don't. But
because it doesn't fit the narrative.
But I get also that you can't cover every single story. But at the same time, they don't even do any kind of.
Oh, but they cover every story coming from the other angle.
Exactly.
Every time somebody that's insane does something with a gun, they'll cover that.
Yeah.
Right off the bat.
That becomes national
news. But as soon as somebody does something with a gun that you're supposed to do, they get their panties in a wad.
It's because they like sensationalism.
They do, and ratings.
There's
clickbait.
For them, there's nothing sensational about somebody stopping criminals.
No. That's insane.
If you think about it, if you want to put that, there you go, news.
So
that's what you do.
Just to back that up, there was recently, this is coming from Bearing Arms, there was a gun owner survey, which to point it out, they surveyed 16,000 people. So it's not like your typical AP poll where they call 1,000 people and call that a poll. That they surveyed a lot of people. I'm still not big on surveys because you usually can't get a good picture. But
you don't know
big sample size.
Yeah, and the demographics change all over the place. So,
but according to this, the study said that 31.1% of the firearm owners surveyed used a firearm in self-defense. So if you take that and imply that that percentage to the percentage of gun owners, that means there's approximately, we'll just say 25 million adult Americans that have defended themselves with a firearm. So that's one statistic that they don't show you, is that 1% of gun deaths are bad guys with a gun doing bad things, but 25% or 31%.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
Corn Top was a bad dude, and he hung out with a bunch of bad boys. But to that end, gun control is what it is, and I believe that some gun control is appropriate. For instance, we were talking before the show that maybe felons that commit violent murder shouldn't be allowed to own firearms. That's probably a good idea.
This picture kind of cracks me up that they post here.
Yeah,
because how many like gun owners actually carry a 6-shooter?
A 6-shooter
backwards, like they're freaking.
And notice not only that,
Billy the Kid,
he's got the "We the People" tattoo, which is that's a cliche. But dude's wearing a kilt. I mean, look at this. Dude's wearing a kilt with a 6-shooter.
This guy is like...
Yeah. What is this, Billy McKid?
He's like out of... he's like, who took this picture and
That's
thought
what
it was...
I'm saying. Like, this is a good representative of the gun owners in America. A guy wearing a kilt.
This is like post-apocalyptic Scottish dude running around like... this is like Fallout 76 going on.
Is he wearing a buffalo helmet? Oh, I'm glad you pointed that out, because I was thinking of that earlier. Like,
I was like, that's cool and all, but that's not nobody does that.
That's not your typical gun owner with his pleated kilt. So, but at any rate, I also had something
you need airflow when you...
I also had something from Bearing Arms. Fatal mass stabbing event happened in Canada. As we all know, Canada's gone full on fascism up there, and their prime minister actually came out and said that they don't have a right to defend themselves with a firearm in Canada. Just after that, there were two brothers that went on a stabbing spree. Damien and Miles Sanderson murdered 10 people and wounded 18 during a stabbing rampage.
So 28 people in total.
This is stabbing rampage. I've been told that, the only way that you can get a body count like that is by using an AR-15.
They need to outlaw knives.
They're working on it. They're working on it. In the UK, they've banned a lot of different kinds of knives. But this just goes to show you, we're not glorifying the violence.
No.
We're not celebrating this. This is a tragedy, and it's horrible. But it just goes to show you that human beings themselves have a propensity towards violence. And we've had this issue since our inception. We're animals, people. We're no better than the hyenas in Africa. Human beings will find a way to kill other human beings.
Well, it's crazy to think that what those two were able to do, and did they specify the span of time?
It was like a half hour or an hour.
So what it took them like a half an hour to an hour to do is taken some serial killers like 30, 40 years to accomplish.
Exactly. And I will point out that if this happened in Midland, Texas...
No, yeah.
It would have been over in the first 3 minutes.
That 17-year-old would have like...
Yeah. This and again,
his dark-colored sedan would have smelled like the streets of San Francisco, to put it like
exactly. So I mean, it goes to show you that all it would have taken is one guy or gal, one person, responsible gun owner with a concealed carry permit, and this would have been over as soon as it started.
Yeah.
As soon as it started. In Midland, Texas, this wouldn't have been an issue. You wouldn't even hear about it. The headline would have read, suspect pulls knife, is killed immediately.
Yeah. 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 I mean, seriously. I mean, that would be the case in most states in the U.S.
Good old Pennsylvania. As much as our current governor is a asshat, and the guy that's running behind him is also an asshat. Despite all that, Pennsylvania is a pretty pro Second Amendment state, and we always have been. Thank God for the Republican legislature.
Yeah, don't vote for Shapiro.
Don't vote for Shapiro. I actually found an article earlier today while perusing this stuff that
I don't care who you vote for, but don't vote for Shapiro. I do care who you vote for. Don't vote for Shapiro.
Shapiro was recently sued by a gun owners group because they were purposefully trying to delay concealed carry permits and stuff like that, and they lost. Pennsylvania, they found that the Pennsylvania instant check system is redundant and it causes unnecessary delays. There was a guy that had his FFL, so he's obviously cleared to not only own firearms but to sell them and manufacture them. He had to wait 20 hours before he got his background check back from the gun dealership, which is ridiculous. And nowadays you think, 20 hours, that's less than a day, that's nothing. But in an era where everything's instant, 20 hours is the same as 20 weeks was a long time ago. Like, you don't understand that you can't restrict somebody for nothing.
Well, let's think of the practicality of this. How many states do things just to charge more money for it? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I mean, let's get past the whole, it took him too long to get his gun permit. Let's think about the waste of money that states love to, I think about it from that perspective.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a waste of freaking money. You just put more systems into place. It's like, what was that thing Biden wanted to do recently? Some kind of organization for, I can't even think of the name of it right now. It was in a news article from a couple months ago, and we were talking about the fact that there was like 40 other agencies that did the same exact crap, and he wanted to throw together a new agency to do the same crap, and he even got questioned on it. He was like, well, don't they already do this at blah, blah, blah? I wish I had the context. I can't remember what the
Well, it's just like the way that they're calling for universal background checks.
Yeah.
Anybody that says, hey, they should have a universal background check, have you purchased a gun?
Yeah, there is.
I mean, have you ever? I encourage anyone that's never actually bought a gun, just go through the motions. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to walk out the store with it, but just go to a gun shop and go through the process. Go through what you would have to go through to buy a gun. It's not what you think it is.
No, my first, and just to put this into perspective, my first gun that I ever purchased for personal protection because I lived by myself was when I was 25. I want to say 24, 25, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was 25. Anyways, gun checks.
Oh, yeah.
Background checks.
Oh, yeah.
Interviews. I actually had to sit down and do an interview.
Yeah, because you were in Philly.
Yeah, it was a little different. I mean, I got it in no time because I had a good past.
Yeah.
And I still do. And so when I come up here and apply, I have it within, a day or two or whatever the case be. But
I have a problem because of my name.
Yeah.
There is a Michael L. Clayton in the prison system in Pennsylvania.
Not to be confused with George Clooney's interpretation of Michael Clayton.
So there's another one in Pennsylvania that's actually in the prison system. So when I bought my first gun, I was actually almost denied. I had to come back the next day because it flagged. All I did was fill out my name and so on and so forth. I didn't go through I hadn't gone through the process before, so I didn't know. Now I put my social security
That's
number.
what I was going to say. It's like if they had your social.
Yeah. Now I put my social security number on the application, and that speeds things up. But my first one, I actually had to come back the next day because my clearances never came through. Now it's still like a 45-minute wait for me.
Yeah.
because of that douchebag that ruined my good name. But at any
But
rate,
he's Michael L. Clayton.
yeah, so am I.
Oh, your middle name's L.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Well,
Yep.
well, sucks.
I'm fucked. I think his middle name is Leroy or something like that. It doesn't matter. Mine is Leon. My dad's name. Shout out to Dad. So because we have the same name, it still takes me 45 minutes, but they clear me. Nonetheless, that should tell people that these background checks are thorough, because otherwise they wouldn't have waited. They'd be like, oh yeah, you're good.
See, I would put my social security number and they'd still call me Steve.
Little inside joke. So I guess my point is anyone that has never bought a gun or has never been through the process should try it. Even if you don't want a gun, don't buy one, but go through the process so that you understand that it's not just you walk in and talk to Billy Bob and walk out with a gun and 1,000 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, I've been, and I can attest to this, I've been, when I'm purchasing a new sidearm or when I'm there actually like in Philadelphia applying for my permit in person, these people are watching.
Oh yeah.
The people at least the places I've been, they're watching. Like the owners of these places are full aware of the extent of the law and what ramifications there are if they don't sell things above and beyond, what the law states.
Yep.
And the people that they're manning, and I'm not saying that there aren't instances where there are questionable folks that are manning these stations, whether they be gun ownership or gun shops or like state organizations that have to handle this whole process. I'm not saying there aren't, but I would say that there's a preponderance of good people that are manning these stations that are very well aware of what needs to be done and how it should be done.
I have never in my experience at any gun shop that I've ever been to, I have never seen a rubber stamp.
Yeah,
I have never seen, in fact, I've seen more people denied than I have ever seen rubber stamped. I've never seen a rubber stamp, but I've seen a ton of people denied.
Well, I told you about that one kid that walked in. It's like, oh, you need my ID? It's like,
yeah,
where are you from?
Like red flag number one. Red flag number one. And to your point, the FFLs that are selling these guns, they're paying attention.
Oh yeah,
they understand behaviors and they're looking for weird behaviors.
And they could get their shop shut down.
Yeah, absolutely.
These people don't sell guns just to put them into people's hands.
Exactly.
They sell guns because it's
they
a
make
living.
money. They make money doing it. And why would you risk
your business?
Not only risk your business, but
idiot.
risk your freedom, because you're going to be put in prison for
some idiot
selling guns to felons.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've seen a lot of people denied. In fact, my father-in-law was denied because he checked a box wrong on his application. There's a question that you go through, and the way that some of the questions are worded, I understand. And it was something about, are you the purchaser, or something along. The way that it was worded. He just checked the wrong box, and the guy's like, "Oh, I can't sell you a gun."
Yeah.
And he's like, well, can I come back? And they banned him. Like, he wasn't allowed to, because he filled out the form wrong. So,
well, stupid me, I proof checked mine and I had to redo mine because I misspelled my last name. And man, I was so pissed off at myself and they looked at me. It's like, you seriously misspelled my name? They were ribbing me about it. It's like, yeah, touche.
But I've definitely seen people denied at the stores. And one thing that I do see an uptick in Lycoming County is they're prosecuting more and more people that are trying to buy guns, even though they're disqualified.
Yeah.
Because even trying, if you know that you're disqualified, I think that's the first question is, are you disqualified from owning a firearm in Pennsylvania?
And if you check, yes, you're lying.
Yeah.
And it's perjury.
Yeah. Exactly. So you're
and that's that they don't realize that it's not a piece of paper that gets shredded.
Exactly.
It's all done online,
and it's a big deal.
It's recorded.
It goes to the FBI.
It's a flag.
The FBI is actually the agency that does the actual check is the FBI.
Yeah.
The FBI.
That's That's why it's always so weird for the, like that story that happened in Missouri, where the FBI, Missouri, the Show Me State, where they were requesting an entire list of all registered gun owners, and it's like, why?
Why?
You already do all the background checks.
Well, we just need to audit the system and make sure that. Why?
Yeah.
That.
You already get all that information. What are you doing with it?
We've seen throughout history what happens when these lists are given to the government, and it's never a good thing.
Well, it also shows incompetence.
Yeah.
If you think about it, it's like your system is the one that this is all based on.
Yeah, and you're worried that people are slipping.
It's
through
called
the
an
cracks?
FBI. It's not done by Toys R Us.
Yeah.
Toys R Us isn't the proxy for the FBI.
Yeah.
This isn't. It's like it's your freaking system.
Yeah. You designed it. So what are you trying to say?
We work in IT. We understand that when you have to reach out for support for a system sometimes that you didn't design, the expectation is that the person on the other end of the line understands more about the system than you do.
And sometimes
that doesn't happen.
No, it's ridiculous how often that doesn't happen. But at any rate, the point is that most responsible gun owners don't want irresponsible people owning guns. I don't want irresponsible people owning guns.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why the gun control lobby in this country is so against responsible gun owners. If you honestly think about it this way, if you look at the history of gun control laws, it's not racist to own guns. It's racist to prohibit people from owning guns.
It is.
The very first gun laws in this country were written to keep guns out of the hands of freed slaves.
Yeah.
They didn't want
an uprising. They didn't want a rebellion.
And like I said before the podcast, if I was a guy that just whipped and beat people for the past 20 years,
afraid too.
I'd be a little nervous when they were free and wanted to buy guns. I think I'd be a little nervous too.
You should be.
And you should be, because they're coming back for you, and they're coming back for you hard. So I totally get their fear, but their fear was based in racism, because if they hadn't have abused an entire race of human beings, they wouldn't have had anything to be afraid of to begin with. But gun control laws were actually started in this country on a racist basis.
Yeah.
They wanted to keep the hands out of minorities. And still today, if you look at inner cities and the neighborhoods where gun laws are enforced more heavily, they're predominantly minority neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So all of your big cities like New York City and Philadelphia and Atlanta, I could go on and on and on. Sacramento, San Francisco, they all have very, very strict gun control laws, but the majority of the people that live there are minorities.
Well, that's why, not for anything. This whole question of this problem that we have with race is continued on by people that still have problem with race.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I get you.
At the core of it, a lot of the discussion and a lot of the continued problem and the continued efforts, it almost seems like continued efforts that they put into keeping this problem alive.
This narrative going, yeah.
Keeping the problem alive is conducted by people that, if you were to beat it out of the core of them, have problem with minorities, have problem with people of different race and ethnicities for some reason. And what's funny to me is like Winsome Sears, who just won, who's the vice governor of Virginia.
Yep.
She beats that explanation. She beats that out of the water.
Yep.
Former Marine businesswoman, smart as a whip. This person could blow anybody out of the water in terms of like just debates. She's sharp as a tack. And she talks about, one of the things she talks about is, why the political environment has such a problem with people that are black and conservative.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting discourse that she has on that. But it's interesting that they take such an affront to specifically black individuals, black people that have a problem, that are conservative, that have conservative, and it's like, it just smacks you in the face. It's like, why?
I hate to say it this way, but I think it's because the Democratic Party thinks that they own those votes. They think that they think that they're entitled to the black community. Yeah, that they own the black community.
And that's what's creepy about it, is that when you have a political party, whether it be the right or left or whoever it is, that thinks they're entitled to your belief system, entitled to your vote.
Well, it's like Joe Biden. If you don't vote for, if you're having, direct quote, if you're having trouble deciding whether to vote for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
Yeah,
direct quote.
Yeah,
direct quote. A black individual does not come with they're not born with a Democratic voter card.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they should be able to vote for whoever they want to. If they want to vote Democratic, by all means, it's a free country, vote Democratic. But you can't just assume that because of the shade of somebody's skin, how they're supposed to vote one way or another. The other surprising thing is, there's a lot of Latino voters that are moving over to the Republican Party and conservatives, because most of them culturally and historically are conservative. Well, Hispanics are conservative. It's a conservative culture.
Well, what was it just recently? Was it Venezuela? Just struck down a new constitution. It was big in the news for a few days. But there was apparently a new constitution that they were trying to propose. The party, or the leading party at the time, was trying to propose, and it was like a complete diametric change from everything that they've stood for traditionally. And they struck it down.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, but even on that point, if you look at the people that are actually migrating into Florida from like Cuba, Florida, or the Dominican Republic, or, different, island nations like that, you'll find a lot of them are very much attuned to more libertarian and conservative ideals, because of the environment that they've come from, where they're restricted, where they're basically told that what you can think, do. Yeah.
Well, in Cuba, you're not even allowed to own a cow. only the state is allowed to own cows. Like, I watch a lot of YouTube, probably more than I should. But there's a guy on there that was born and raised in Cuba, and he came to the United States as an adult. And the whole premise of this channel is watching him do things that he could never do in Cuba. And one of the things that he did was he ate a steak for the first time at like 33. First steak he ever had. And man, he loved it, obviously.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He was crying. He was crying when they served him his steak, because you're not allowed to have it in Cuba. You can eat chicken, and there's certain other things that you can eat, like chicken and pork, but they don't have cows. Cows are too expensive. Only the state is allowed to own cattle.
Why should the state be allowed to partake in that which its own people cannot?
They shouldn't.
That's what drives me nuts about this demographic breakdown with conservatives, libertarians, left, progressive, middle, whatever the case be. Yeah. Is that it always becomes a color issue. Yeah. And it drives me up the freaking wall. It drives me up the freaking wall, because it's like, who cares what color your skin is, for crying out loud? You're as capable or as incapable as I am.
Absolutely. The difference between us is only skin deep.
But they keep pushing it, and then it just turns into this. It's a class. I mean, like in nation states like, Cuba. I mean, of course you have. It's not a color issue. It's just an elitist, classist issue. Yep. But it's the same thing. They just take something that they can use to lord over you.
Oh, it's the communist socialist playbook.
You weren't born from the right family, or you weren't born with the right dollar amount next to your paycheck.
Well, you can see that kind of shit happening here now too. Yeah. If you don't prescribe to the the belief of the day, so to speak, then you're ostracized and you're considered stupid.
Well, not for anything, but whether we've known it, recognized it or not, we've been building that kind of mentality into our culture for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I'm not even talking in politics. I'm talking about fads.
Oh, yeah.
If suddenly somebody doesn't want to wear flare pants, like
they're outsiders.
Like 60s or 70s, you didn't want to wear flare jeans, which are the stupidest things ever. Bell bottoms.
Well, they're coming back. They were big when I was a kid.
Well, it was there for a time. That was the only thing that was sold.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just that idea is that, as fashion develops or different fads develop, if you don't go along with the fad, you're suddenly somehow out of the loop.
Yep.
And you're not relevant anymore to the overall discussion. It's just that I know that's a simplistic example.
No, that's actually a great way to put it, because these belief systems are fads. They come and go. Like, there was a time in this country where people of color weren't allowed to drink from the same water fountain.
Yeah.
And that was considered normal.
Yeah.
That was obviously stupid.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we've
wrong.
changed that, but that was the fad of the day.
Yeah.
And now we've changed that. And I'm glad we have, but what will be the fad tomorrow?
Yeah.
And I'm right now, the thing that's popular is shitting on conservatives. That's what's popular. It's considered funny. It's if you're a religious person, it used to be, you have the right to believe whatever you want to believe, and I'm not going to ostracize you for that. Well, now, if you have any kind of religious beliefs at all, you're considered stupid.
Yeah.
You're an idiot. You must be a moron.
Well, not for anything, and I know we want to tie this up here,
sure,
but not to go on to a whole different subject, but there was a time during, I would say, like the 70s, like the beginning of the 70s till about the mid 80s to late 90s, when conservatism was at its height.
Yeah.
So, and they did the same exact thing on the other end of the stick.
Not discounting that argument.
So
at all.
there was they would have these conferences where they would bring two opposing views in, and debates of that nature have been going on since like forever. Yeah. So whether it be in the context of a college or some kind of public forum, and it's just, you always had one guy there to represent the opposing view, and then the entire crowd was leaning towards one person on that stage, and it would turn into like a heckling.
Yep.
Like a heckling form where you would just completely trounce the other person. It's like, oh, we're gonna make you look like a complete asshole on national television and in front of all these people. We don't really want to hear what you have to say. We want to show you how much we have in our heads right now. So, but you get what I'm saying. It's like tit for tat, but at the same time, the thing that we've got to realize is something that came up again with regards to Queen Elizabeth passing on, and us talking about that tradition being at the core still of everything that they do, despite all the swirling that goes on in the UK with policy and changes in culture and all that kind of stuff. There's still interesting enough. There's still enough of a tie back to the original culture that people respect it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when they mourn Queen Elizabeth's death in the next couple days, I can guarantee you there's going to be a lot of solemn natured people that probably don't give two thoughts about it during the normal course of the day. But now, because it's at the height, this is an important thing. Normalcy is passing away because Queen Elizabeth is now gone.
Yep.
Or what was considered normalcy at that time, for 60, 70 years. People that were born under her being around are going to suddenly take a notice of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not that they weren't aware that it was a thing. It's just like with anything that we do, sometimes we go on about our business in the U.S., in Pennsylvania, in the grander scheme of things in the United States, without even recognizing the fact that we have somebody kind of pulling the strings of what we can do every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we still come back to that at sometimes to realize the importance of it, especially when we have to vote during the midterms and every other 4 years. But my point is that there's a core, the UK, there's a core there that holds them, at least on a larger scale holds them to a center. And I think that's in many ways what we neglect to see in the United States is that I personally believe where we stand with stuff, being libertarian or independent or whatever the case be, is that we delve sometimes into the right side of things. We delve sometimes into what we considered the left side of things in some people's minds. But at the same time, there's a core that holds us to the center of what we believe. You know, there's a core belief that all people can defend themselves. That's why we bring up these stories about, you know, personal defense and good stories about good people that have no reason to be invaded, like they have been, defending themselves rightfully. Yeah. And that right extends to all people. You know, that
Absolutely.
right extends to white, black, green, blue, Latina, rich, poor, you know, entitled, not entitled. It doesn't matter. It's like we believe that right extends to all people because, you know, and
I think Elon Musk, you know, he hasn't been in the news as much lately, but I think he put it perfectly when he was going through the Twitter thing. And he says, if I can piss off the extreme right and the extreme left equally, I must be doing something right.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the way you should. Yeah. That's the way you should be. Is if you're pissing off both sides, the fringe of both sides, then you must be doing something right. Yeah. Because, you know, nobody wants right-wing extremism. At least I don't want to say nobody, because obviously right-wing extremists want right-wing extremism. That's hard to say.
Susie sells, she sells.
Yeah. But the normal everyman or every woman in the United States, and I believe this around the world, is pretty much center. You might just lean 1 to 5 points this way, 1 to 5 points the other way. You know, what direction it is up to you. But I think that most people agree that nobody wants the far right the same way that nobody wants the far left.
Well, center is a comfortable place to be because you can coexist with people when you live in the center. You can get things done when you're in the center. You can enjoy life to some extent when you're in the center. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's not to say that you don't stand up for what you believe in, but truth be told is like even standing up for what's considered middle today becomes a challenge.
Yeah. I think part of the problem is, and you know, to wrap this kind of up because we're pushing a buck and a half here, but I think one of the issues in the United States is for a very long time, for hundreds of years actually, we floated in the middle, and we didn't want to rock the boat. So issues that kind of swayed one way or another, we kind of kicked the can down the road, so to speak, for a very long time. And I think the divisiveness that we're seeing in this country right now is because the issues that we've kicked the can on are the only issues I believe that we really have left. Yeah. Not that there isn't things that need to be addressed in this country and that we don't have progress to make, but I think, you know, slavery was a big one. We got rid of that. Jim Crow was bad. We got rid of that.
Look how long it took.
It took a long time. Yeah. I'm not arguing that fact at all. But now that we've taken care of a lot of the major issues, slavery, I would say, was probably the worst thing the United States has ever done. Yeah. And that was the beginning of us reconciling that, is when we got rid of slavery. And the point I'm trying to make is I think nowadays all of those little things that we used to say, oh, well, we agree on the majority of stuff, it's just these fringe things that we disagree on. Well, now people want answers to those fringe topics, and we've just gotten to a point now where we can no longer ignore them. Yeah. And we have to have these discussions now. We've kicked the can down the road long enough, and now it's to the point where we have to have these discussions, and they're uncomfortable. But had we dealt with them when we were supposed to, like the discussion of reparations, if that would have been taken care of right after the Civil War, the way that it should have been, then it could have been fairly and properly executed.
Well, it's the thing.
Now we're so far removed from that
Yeah.
that we can't properly address it because we've kicked the can down the road too far.
Yeah, because interesting enough, there were a lot of people that were slaves that contributed both scientifically, mathematically, economically to the bottom line of this country and what its progress was, but yet they never got the proper credit.
Recognition.
Yeah, for it.
I mean, you have your Eli Whitneys and your oh man, his name escapes me. The peanut guy. George Washington Carver.
Yeah.
You have your speckles of greatness that came from the African American community, but they never got the recognition that they actually deserved. And I think that if we would have addressed that earlier, it wouldn't be such a pain point today.
Well, you got to wonder too, even from a more micro look, had once slavery was said it's wrong, had the plantation owners been responsible to extend to them a measure of the wealth that they contributed in creating.
Yeah.
Because think about it, it's like a lot of these plantations, their wealth came as a result
on the backs.
And I'm not saying that the plantation owner families had nothing to do with that, because there's a measure of wealth that they earned themselves.
Yeah.
But there's also a huge, it would have just, had it been treated under the law and not, like you said, just kicked down the road because it was too grand of a thing to deal with.
It was too uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And a lot of the folks that were in charge back then didn't want to pay the price, so to speak. But that's actually a great point. Is it should have been the responsibility of the guilty parties, those that actually owned the slaves, should have been forced to give a percentage of their estates. What's the old saying? 40 acres, 50 acres and a mule, or whatever.
Like
whatever the saying is, they should have gotten their pound of flesh.
Yeah,
so to speak, from the plantation owners and those that benefited directly from forced labor.
Well, if you think about it, a lot of them that came out of slavery, it was a big deal for them just for the simple fact that they no longer had to answer to somebody.
Yeah.
They were their own person now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, is that now you had some of them were getting out of this when they were in their 40s, 50s, 60s. What
are you going to do?
What lifespan? It's like a prisoner that got indicted improperly, or we know these stories happen where somebody goes to jail for a good portion of their life and were not guilty of what they were indicted for, and then what's left of them. It's like the Shawshank Redemption.
Yep.
That guy, I can't remember his name, his character.
Brooks.
Okay. And in the end, he's like 70, 80 years old and works at a grocery
store,
market, and he's just like
and
ends up killing himself in the end. But it's that idea is that had it been dealt with then.
We actually just had an issue similar to that in Jersey Shore. There was a gentleman that had been in the criminal justice system for a majority of his life, 50 years. He's been in and out of jail, on probation or parole in some form or another, and he was about to be released from the system completely at like 52. But all he had known was
prison life.
was the system.
Yeah.
So he robbed a bank. He robbed a bank in Jersey Shore, just so that he didn't have to. He couldn't handle being outside of the system. He didn't know what to do, and it's sad that we institutionalize people that way. But it's just like
it's not real rehab.
It's like a bear. I hate to use an analogy of animals, but it's a great analogy. It's like a bear that's been in the circus for 30 years. You can't just throw him back out in the wild.
He won't know what to do.
He won't survive.
Yeah.
He won't have any idea how to survive.
Yep.
It's the same thing. He's been in captivity for far too long. So,
but that's an interesting conversation we can have sometime.
You can find us on Twitter at the BTL Podcast. You can find us on Facebook at PA Between the Lines. And you can find us at our website, thebtlpodcast.com.
I want to see Kenny G reprise this. Like, I want to see, like, the Long Man's out there. I mean,
Yep.
he's popular now because of these videos. And, of course, these were, like, from 2017.
Yeah.
I want to see them do a live Kenny G where Long Man walks out on stage and Kenny G plays the song as he sits there with his
chewing gum or whatever it is.
That would be epic. That would be like, I would be done. That would be it.
So I guess to recap,
we talked about a lot of everything today.
9/11 happened.
Yes.
Queen died.
Yes.
Don't break into people's houses.
Yep.
Fuck around and find out. Gun control is racist. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah.
9/11.
None of those
Dead Queen.
None of those topics had anything to do with each other.
No, but we segued pretty well.
Yeah, I think
I'm going to
we
say
did.
the
Yeah.
segues were great.
Yeah.
I feel like this was a good show. Comment down below.
Speaking of segways, they say that the original Segway inventor fell off the side of a cliff in Norway or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Actually, the original Segway builder was a guy from New England.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
believe it or not.
interesting.
But neither here nor there. I pointed out because sometimes segways don't work.
Things that exist.
Yeah, things that exist.
So until next time, go back and check out some of our older episodes. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter. Comment on the videos down below. That helps us out. We've actually had, for the first time ever, we've had some feedback on some of our videos.
Cool.
It's great feedback. We really appreciate getting that feedback and letting us know, how we're doing and what we could do better, so on and so forth. We love that kind of feedback, so keep that coming. Until next time, just be good to yourselves. Take care of your family. Don't do anything stupid. Be level-headed. Just take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.
Have a good week.